Christian Parenting.
Hey, this is Amy Parker.
And Mike Naraki.
The Bible for Kids podcast is now brought to you in part by our friends and partners over at christianparenting.org. They are reaching over 500,000 parents on a monthly basis with podcasts just like The Bible for Kids, offering practical help and spiritual guidance to parents just like you.
Because of the Christian Parenting Podcast Network, we're able to reach people on a weekly basis with encouragement that might just help them take that pivotal next step in their parenting journey.
So today, if you have been impacted by this podcast, we are asking you to visit Christian Parenting at www.cpgive.org and consider a gift to support the future creation of parenting resources. And when you give today at cpgive.org, your gift will be doubled thanks to a generous donor stepping forward with a $10,000 matching grant.
All parents need a trusted community. All parents need a reminder that it's okay to be imperfect. And all parents need Jesus. As a parent comes to know and love Jesus more, so do their kids. Please visit www.cpgive.org.
Welcome to the Bible for Kids podcast with your hosts, best-selling children's author Amy Parker and author and co-creator of VeggieTales, Mike Naraki. If instilling biblical values in kids is important to you, this podcast will give you the resources, wisdom, and hope to do just that. Now, let's join our hosts, Amy and Mike, for this week's episode.
Welcome back to the Bible for Kids podcast. I'm Mike Naraki.
And I'm Amy Parker. What if there are tornadoes here? That's relevant. What if I trip getting on the bus? What if my dad loses his new job? What if a star falls out of the sky and lands on my dog? These are some of the worries of young Willow in the new book, What Do I Do with Worry? By husband and wife authors Dr. Josh and Christi Straub. Mike and I are thrilled to be speaking with them today, but before we meet Josh, Christi is on child duty. She's got the tough job here, but we are speaking with Josh. We like to start every Bible for Kids episode with a Bible verse.
Don't worry about anything. Instead, pray about everything. Tell God what you need and thank Him for all that He has done. Then you will experience God's peace, which exceeds anything we can understand. His peace will guard your hearts and minds as you live in Christ Jesus. Philippians 4:6-7 in the New Living Translation.
That scripture is so much stronger when you read it all the way through 7, like you just did. I mean, we always see the don't worry about anything, pray about everything, but the rest of that just gives it so much depth. Anyway, Joshua Straub Ph.D. is most renowned for his role as husband and dad. He is also a recovering human, an ongoing journey that includes therapy, coaching, a tight-knit faith community, and staying fit. On stage, Josh is a speaker, author, marriage and leadership coach, university professor, and a podcast and TV co-host. He and his wife, Christi, lead Famous at Home, a company equipping leaders and corporations in emotional intelligence and healthy family systems. Josh is also a fellow of the Townsend Institute for Leadership and Counseling. Josh most enjoys coaching leaders to be famous at home so they can thrive on their stage. He also speaks regularly for Joint Special Operations Command and serves military families across the country. Josh is an co-author of 6 books, including Safe House, How Emotional Safety is the Key to Raising Kids Who Live, Love, and Lead Well. And he and his wife, Christi, host the Famous at Home podcast and co-wrote their children's book, What Am I Feeling?, to help parents foster emotional awareness in kids.
Josh, great to have you back on the show.
Thank you so much, you guys, for having me. It's always a pleasure to be with you.
Yeah, and so before we get into your new book, I would love to know what it's like being a husband and wife, writing, speaking, podcasting team, business owners, business partners. We had a mother-daughter team on recently, and it was hard for me to imagine writing with my mom, but writing with my husband and we do work together some. So I'll help him with his stuff sometimes. But writing with him, I mean, what is it like doing all of this, being a business partner with your wife?
Yeah, it has its challenges. First of all, I want to start by saying it's the most amazing thing. I don't know anything different. So I think that's, I worked prior to getting married. So I know, what it's like to work solo, but I don't know that I would envision it any other way. Like, I think we have to be super intentional. And you read the bio there, like, we go to therapy on a regular basis just to maintain a healthy and outside perspective on how we're doing things. Because it's easy to get caught in the business of stuff and not then have, you're romantically married. Like, you have a marriage to also to nurture and that type of thing in that relationship. And so I think we have one of the best ways, one of the most helpful practices that we have is we just have rhythms. We've named every single day of the week, and it starts with Sabbath. So we start every Saturday is Sabbath for us, and we do it Saturday because Sunday's just so busy with church and things. So we do Friday night. Tonight's Friday night that we're recording this. So we got a Friday night Shabbat that we do dinner, and then Saturday is our Sabbath, and we start there. And then every day of the week is named. So our kids know what the rhythms are looking like. We know what the rhythms are looking like. And then there's the ebb and flow of just doing like writing, for example. I think we write really well together. If I could give the negative, comes up quite often, where I think we believe in each other so much and we see each other, how easy it is to take one another for granted. Where we tend to butt heads is like, if she's writing something or I'm writing something, we'll come in and rather than just giving it the praise, we'll start picking apart like what needs to be edited out or what needs to be fixed. And you just come barreling in with the negatives, and you feel offended because you're like, whoa, I just worked so hard on this and that's what you have to say. And so that's kind of when it comes to writing, that's
I find that same stuff with my students, because it's like when you get in this groove of working, it's like, okay, if it's working great, I don't need to comment on it, but let's talk about what's not working, and it's just feels more efficient somehow. But you have to realize, no, you gotta come with the praise first.
My kids have to brace themselves when they bring me papers. Like, what do you think of this? I'm like, do you want me to proofread it? What is it that you want me to do before I?
And Amy, I can't even imagine too. I haven't thought about this, but the pressure our own children feel is having authors suspend.
And in our house, I'm the word nerd, and my husband is the math nerd, so nobody gets a pass around here.
Oh, that's amazing.
Oh man. Yeah, my daughter, like Amy, is in law school, and she now brings me her papers to, if she sends me a paper to proofread, the best I can do is maybe look for typos. It's like I'm lost anywhere else. Like, no, this is beyond my scope. Even
with my classmates, I'm like, I can proofread your paper, but please do not ask me to analyze the legal aspect. I'm doing the best I can here. Yeah.
Oh, that's amazing.
So what do I do with worry? That's your new book, Josh. And can you tell our listeners a little bit about why you wrote this book and what inspired you specifically to write about worry? Yeah, no, great question. And so we wrote What Am I Feeling first. So we had a children's book a couple years ago that we released called What Am I Feeling? It has a feelings chart in the back, and it walked through a number of different characters having various feelings. And our idea was, okay, so what about individual feelings? Because we get this question a lot from parents is, my children are angry, or how do they deal with their anger? How do they deal with sad? How do they deal with worry? And so our passion was to say, hey, let's break each of these individual emotions down for kids so that they have tools, but that parents have the tool as well, because children's books are always a great way to bring the parent and the child together. You can write a book on the topic, but you're only going to get so many parents having time to read an entire book on a particular topic. If the pain point is really, really big, they might spend the time to do it. Otherwise, you're not going to hit as broad of an audience. And so for us, our idea was saying, hey, how can we bring parents together with their children and talk about worry and make it okay to talk about worry? Because, the Bible verse you read there in the beginning, the Philippians 4, that is such a powerful verse. There's so much packed into that verse that, that kids often, just the idea when we worry, it is caught in the right side of our brain. Like, we are feeling that emotion. And kids are feeling, especially at a young age, it's like there's the color, when they come into the world, they're trying to discern the color blue and yellow. And we hold up these, our son has this little boat, these little boats. And I was talking to him last night in the bathtub, like red and yellow and blue. And they're learning all these new nuances and they're learning all these new words. But for young kids, emotions
aren't just something they're trying to label. It's also something they feel in their body. And so the way that we tend to calm down is by engaging the left side of the brain. So labeling it, like just simply being able to talk about it or say that I'm worried has a calming effect. And so I think a lot of times though, as parents, we tend to just go, oh, don't worry about it. We'll minimize it, or let's just kind of pretend it's not there. When the reality is when we address it, we allow our kids to talk about it, it has a calming effect on their brain and on their bodies.
That's so amazing for you to say, because I have vague memories of being a child and feeling, but yet not being able to identify what it was. And in having memories of that being a frustrating kind of experience and kind of almost a sad or depressing experience as well.
Yeah. And I think a lot of times as parents, I wasn't raised in a home where we, specifically labeled our emotions or knew how to navigate that. And so as parents, I think a lot of times, and this is more like, we just don't have that. We're not taught that vocabulary. We're not taught that. And so we tend to parent the way that we were raised, and we do the best that we can with our kids. And I think so often, we tend in those respects, what we'll end up doing is there's three mistakes we tend to make. We'll either punish the negative emotion. And a lot of time we don't even intend to punish the negative emotion. It's just that the negative emotion, our kids are reacting out of they react with behavior. They don't know what to do with it. So they're disobedient or they do something and so we end up disciplining the behavior, but we don't take the time to go in underneath it. So we punish, dismiss it, and kind of just stay busy and dismiss the negative emotion, or we minimize it. Oh, it's not that big of a deal. That tornado is going to be okay. It's going to pass. It's not that big thing, And so we never give our children the opportunity to talk, draw, or whatever it is, to just kind of work it out and help them process through it.
Yeah. And a lot of times too, I mean, there's no fault. I can, like, we've just recently had tornado warnings here, and I have one son who's particularly, and he's a teenager now, and just really anxious when he watches the weather all day. He is the first one in the hallway with the bicycle helmets. Yeah. Josh is raising his hand here. And so as a parent, though, your knee-jerk response, I think, is to tell them it's going to be okay, is to minimize.
Let me give you some statistics right here, kid.
No, that is not what I do. He's already looked up the statistics. He knows the statistics. But as a parent, I feel like, we feel the need to just, it's like when you rush to them when they skin their knee and tell them it's okay, even though it's clearly not, their knee is bleeding. So I think that's a knee-jerk response that parents do, is to tell them it's going to be okay. But in the process, we don't realize how we're minimizing their feelings. Or so what do you suggest then, instead of what should our knee-jerk response be?
Yeah, I know, and that's great. And I think too, one of the things I also want to say is just to not beat us up as parents, like, because it's easy to do and feel like, oh my goodness, I'm not doing a good enough job, or, I need to be doing a better job, or that type of thing. And I think for a lot of us, we just have to understand that we have everything. God has given us everything that we need to be a great parent to our kids, to raise our kids really, really well. Yeah. And I think sometimes, we just need to be able to have our own outlet, and to be able to have our own way to process our own worry, so that we're not carrying that worry in with our kids. And so I just want to just take a second to even address to the parent and just say, self-care is so important, like taking care of your own self, spending time in the Word, getting time with Jesus. Like for me, one of my biggest, most important practices is I wake up early. Like I make sure I wake up early, but that forces me to then go to bed early. So I'm usually in bed not too much long after our kids are in bed, and Christy is too. And part of the reason is because I know that I show up differently when I've had time in the morning to work out and spend time with the Lord before everyone else is out of bed. And so I wake up really early to be able to do that. But I've had to do that in order to just be a different dad, a different husband, and show up well. And, that's there's the ebb and flow of rhythms in that process, right? And so, I talked about rhythms early on, and that's part of our rhythm. And so I just want to say that to parents, like just making sure that, we're taking care of ourselves, that because you do, like, relationship. I genuinely believe this. I believe that relationships are the antidote to pretty much every every issue that we deal with. I think, our ability to, you go back to Philippians 4, that was such a great verse to start with, because what is it doing? It's reconnecting us to a relationship with God. We're identifying that, wait a minute, we're not to worry. We're not to be anxious about anything. Well, that's so hard to do in this world, because we all worry. All of our kids worry. All of us as adults worry. But God is saying, hey, come to me, because it's in my relationship that you don't have to worry. I'm the God who calmed the storm. I'm the God who slept through the storm on the boat. I'm the God who walks on water. I have this, and it's that continually building relationship. And I think the same is true with us as parents. The more that we can step into the world of our kids and build relationship, it's that sense of feeling safe in the world around us. And there are scary things, as you're talking about. Like, there's a tornado warning coming in. Like we experienced that last week as well.
Yes.
We had all of our bike helmets in there. Like, we're all ready to go. And for me, I'm up through the night. I'm studying the weather. I'm paying attention to it. But I'm doing everything I can as a dad in that respect to make sure that I'm bearing the weight of that, so that nobody else has to in the house. And so I think the more that we can stay healthy as adults and have our own outlets, the people we talk to, our church community, our faith community, then we're not carrying our own worry into our relationship with our kids as well. And I think that's where it can get a little bit difficult, is when we pass our worry onto our kids.
Yeah.
Right.
And I think you answered to the knee-jerk reaction that we should have as parents is in that Philippians verse. It's pray. It's, and we've done that. And that makes me feel better, because we have prayed in the hallway with our bicycle helmets on.
I would just want to say one other thing about that verse too that's powerful is, I think Paul was the first neuroscientist. Like, he understood the way the brain works there.
Yeah.
Because he says, pray, but he says, do it with thanksgiving.
Yeah.
In prayer and supplication with thanksgiving. Well, neurobiologists have found that anxiety and gratitude cannot coexist in the brain.
Yeah.
So when you are grateful, you push worry out. So it's easy to go into prayer and say, God, I worry. I'm worried about this. I'm worried about this. I'm worried about this. And then we come out of prayer and we're more worried than when we went into it. But when we pray to the God thank you that you're the God who calmed the storm. Thank you that you're the God who's watching over us. Thank you that that the heavenly hosts are protecting our family right now. Thank you. And you come out of prayer and you go, oh, wow, I walk in the authority of Jesus and we are protected. And now you're entering out prayer differently, because you're focused on who he is rather than on the circumstances that are happening around you.
Yeah. Okay, well, we have got to take a break. So we will be right back. This is such good stuff, but we will be right back with Josh Straub on the Bible for Kids podcast. From the creators of the 1-year daily acts of friendship comes 100 daily acts of friendship for girls. Strong, healthy friendships offer a safe place for girls to be themselves and share their deepest feelings. But how do they build lasting friendships? One of the key ingredients to having good friends is learning to be a good friend. Designed for girls 8 to 12, 100 Daily Acts of Friendship for Girls teaches what God says about friendship and will give them practical, everyday tips for developing lifelong relationships. Each devotion includes a scripture verse, a short story about friendship, questions to ponder, and a daily act of friendship section with ideas for living out what they have learned. Girls will not only learn how to develop godly friendships with others, but will discover how to be friends with Jesus, the friend who will never disappoint and will always stand beside them. 100 Daily Acts of Friendship for Girls is available wherever books are sold.
With the tenderness of a mother speaking directly to her child, best-selling author Karen Kingsbury uses her heartwarming book, Let Me Hold You Longer, to remind us that the years of childhood fly too quickly by us. Most of us faithfully remember and capture our children's firsts. Karen encourages readers to try to recognize and savor the often fleeting lasts, the last days of kindergarten and last at-bats in Little League amid the whirlwind of life. This poignant reminder has taken on a whole different meaning as families have adapted to quickly changing circumstances in a pandemic, and in some cases, let go of everyday routines while experiencing many unexpected lasts. This book makes a perfect gift for baby showers, new moms, seasoned moms, recent graduates, and anyone else who needs a reminder to savor the last moments of childhood. Let Me Hold You Longer is available wherever books are sold.
Welcome back to the Bible for Kids podcast, and we're speaking with Josh Straub.
So, Josh, in the book, the main character is Willow. And can you talk a little bit about Willow and who inspired that character for you all?
Yeah, Willow is we love Willow. So actually, this is fun because you asked, early on, how do we write, and especially as it comes to kids' books and that type of thing. What do I do with worry was Christy was actually sitting in her little office one day, and her little office has a window, and she loves birds. And so, she loves watching the bird feeder and just seeing the birds come in and out, the mourning doves and that type of thing. And as we were processing and, having conversation about, what are we going to put in this children's book? Those birds kept coming up to her if I tried to hold one of those birds, it would just flap all over the place and I wouldn't be able to hold it. And so what inspired the story was this idea that when we hold worry, our worries are like worry birds. When we try to hold them, they squirm and flap all over our mind, making us feel unsettled inside. And that's really the phrase of the book. And so that's really where it got started, was Christy staring out at these birds. And I think Willow represents every child that we know. We asked our kids, what are your biggest worries? And there are some really big worries to, what if grandma and grandpa die? Or, what if my parents are in a car accident? There's really big worries that kids carry. And then there's worries that are like, in the book, one of the worries is, what if, Willow gets invited to a birthday party in her new neighborhood that she just moved to. And, one of her worries is, will I make new friends? Will they like me? But then one of them is it seems silly, but you don't want to minimize someone else's worries. But, what if they have chocolate cake instead of vanilla? Because I don't like chocolate cake, and kids care. You mentioned this, Amy, in the beginning, what if a star falls out of the sky and lands on my dog? These are worries that kids carry. And so I think Willow really represents so many children today that are carrying around these worries. And grandma comes alongside and talks to her and helps her navigate that. So that's the cool part is now there's a way to, okay, how does Willow really handle these worries without stuffing them down?
Yeah, well, and you mentioned too, just the kind of there's the danger aspect of worry, and then the social anxiety part of worry. And I remember years ago when I was asked to do my first big public speaking engagement in the fall of one year, and I spent the whole summer just fretting and worrying over, so it was like, I think I might rather die than do this, so it was just, so those social things can just be terrifying as well. And I suppose, especially with kids, worried about making friends and all of that. So that is,
absolutely.
In many ways, just as
what we do in the book is we break it down to what ifs. So, all of our worries can pretty much be answered in a what if. What if the friends don't like me? What if there's chocolate cake? What if a tornado, hits our neighborhood? What if? And so, and like you said, there's all kinds of worries, from social to, right now, kids, might worry that they're getting sick. And then it might be that once they're sick, they get worried that they're sick. And what is that going to mean, right? So it's like, I'm worried that I'm going to get sick, but maybe I don't worry until I'm sick. And then once I'm sick, I'm worried, is this going to get worse? Or, right. And so there's these little nuances depending on your child that we have. And I think at the end of the day, our ability to sit with them, and again, I go back to relationship, our ability for our kids to know that we're present, that we're there, and to label and name the what ifs is a really powerful way to help calm our children in those worries.
Mm. Well, and now in the middle of a global pandemic that's affected many people and caused increased worry and anxiety, why is it even more necessary for parents to talk to their children about worry?
Yeah, I think, part of this is because so many things have changed. I mean, we are in our own house, Christy's from Canada, and the regulations in Canada are much more strict than they are here. We have a border that's closed, and we've had a baby in the past year. So he's 10 months old now and still hasn't met Christy's family. And so our kids haven't seen their cousins in nearly a year, and it doesn't look like it's going to happen anytime soon. And so there's a lot of loss, there's a lot of grief, there's a lot of worry. When will I see them again? And that type of thing. And so, that's affecting our family. Our kids are homeschooled. So, we're navigating that now. Before, our son was in public school. So we've since brought them home and we're homeschooling. But even with school, kids wearing masks, or kids, doing virtual schooling, or kids, not being able to spend as much time with their friends because of this. There's so many changes that have happened in our society. And I think what ends up happening a lot of times is that I'm the type of guy that just goes, okay, this is the reality. What do we got to do next to move forward? Right. And it's like, but to take the time to grieve loss. And then, we're getting into the feeling of sadness right now, and grief. But that sadness and grief leads to worry, right? There's worries that our kids have as a result of that. And I think for us as families to recognize it is important. Not only is it okay, it is important that we label what has changed, what does feel different. And it's not that we're harping on it. It's not that we're like making it a big deal, but we're acknowledging it. Mm. We're acknowledging it so that we understand that it's important. And then here's how we move on.
Mm.
Well, and I think too, if you just think about it, saying that out loud is something that, I don't necessarily do intrinsically, but it's such common sense. Like if you hear a noise and you're like, what was that? Oh, it's the cat, or, oh, is the wind, or, oh, is the, just identifying what the source is so many times can just alleviate, that worry. But so you have so many practical lessons and memorable phrases in this book. So how did you come up with these? How did you choose exactly how to frame this book about what to do with worry?
Yeah, we one of the things that we do is we really want a phrase that sticks, right? Like, so in What Am I Feeling? It was, a feeling is just a feeling. It's not in charge of you. And, our kids use that phrase a lot, when they're overwhelmed, when they're really, really feeling overwhelmed. It's like, okay, I can handle this. I can control this. I don't have to let this control my behavior. And so we've seen those phrases stick, and we're saying, okay, so what's a phrase that we can give a child that when their worry bird is flapping all over their mind and making them feel unsettled inside? So that's the phrase, when you have a worry bird, worry bird is something we can see. It's something you can get a sense of. Kids can get a sense of. And when your worry bird flaps all over your mind, makes you feel unsettled inside, that's what happens, So we want to release the worry bird. And when you release the worry bird into the air, and then you're free to fly. And so the idea is that when we release our worries to the Lord, our ability to be able to then be free to fly, our ability to be able to be free to step into the world around us, our ability to be able to be brave. That's the thing, is being brave, right? Courage on the other side of worry. And so that's one of the reasons we use these phrases.
All right. Well, we're going to take another quick break, and we will be right back on the Bible for Kids podcast.
Kids have a lot of questions about God, faith, and the Bible. Why did Jesus come to earth? Who wrote the Bible? What is faith? If you're looking for a great resource to answer some of kids' toughest questions, check out The Big Book of Bible Questions by best-selling author Amy Parker and apologist Doug Powell. With sound theology in kid-friendly terms, Amy and Doug tackle 60 questions covering the Old and New Testaments. The vibrant, playful pictures bring each answer to life and make this book even more fun for kids to read on their own. Plus, you'll love having this book at your fingertips during your family devotions or for those moments when you might need some help with answering your child's questions. The Big Book of Bible Questions is available now from your favorite bookseller.
One boy plus 2 rehydrated squirrels equals hilarious adventures in the Dead Sea Squirrels books, written by Mike Nawrocki. 10-year-old Michael Gomez finds 2 petrified squirrels while exploring a cave in Israel and stows them into his backpack, the perfect souvenirs from his trip. Or so he thought. When the squirrels get rehydrated during a rainstorm, Michael comes face to face with the rather chatty couple, Merle and Pearl Squirrel, who witnessed Jesus' teachings 2,000 years ago. Hilarious missteps and misadventures happen throughout the series as Michael and his friends navigate life, while Merle and Pearl offer wisdom along the way in their own squirrel style. The first 6 books in the Dead Sea Squirrels series are available at your favorite bookseller, and be sure to look for the Dead Sea Squirrels 3-book starter pack, which makes a great gift for kids who love to laugh and read at the same time. Welcome back to the Bible for Kids podcast. Mike and I are speaking with Josh Straub.
So, Josh, you touched on this a little bit earlier, just in terms of your family dynamics and your wife being from Canada and some of the worries. But how have you, in other ways, seen your own kids struggle with worry? And you talked about one phrase from the book, but there may be others that you found to be the most effective with your own kids.
Yeah. So one of the things that we, especially with our kids, so I'm trying to think which one to go here with. Here's a great one, because this leads back to the social anxiety. A couple of years, well, this was not that long ago. It might have been about a year ago. Our son was having a difficult time. He was putting we just asked him to put a sweatshirt on to go to school. Like, put your sweatshirt on to go to school. It's a little chilly out this morning. You can take it off, later when you get home. And he threw such a massive fit about putting on a sweatshirt. And so Christy's driving him to school that morning, and she said, "Landon, what is really going on?" And he was beside himself. So it wasn't until that night he got home and we sat down with him. And what had happened at school was, when you take a sweatshirt off, your t-shirt can ride up and you can see a little bit of your belly. Well, that had happened. And there was a girl in his class who looked at him and went, "Landon, your shirt's up." But that devastated him. It embarrassed him. And so from that point forward, he was so worried about wearing a sweatshirt to school. But what it was coming out in and what it looked like to us was this sense of defiance, the sense of like, I'm not wearing the sweatshirt to school. And this is a lot of times where we as parents will want to put our foot down and say, "No, you're going to listen to me," right? Like, It's like, "No, you're going to do this." Yeah. But underneath it was this sense of embarrassment and shame. And now he's worried. It's carrying to worry. I'm worried that kids will make fun of me. I'm worried that I can't, have a sweatshirt. And so we sat down with him and we came up with a solution to buy him a couple of zip-up hooded sweatshirts so he can zip them up and take them off. Aww. And now he's free to step out into the world and be himself. And he's free to go and not have to have these worries. And that's a simple solution. But a lot of times with young kids, there are simple solutions if we listen, if we can get in there. And so when you let your worry bird go to the sky, that's when you are free to fly, is the other phrase that we use. And so it's like, this was a way for him to let his worry bird go to the sky so that he's now free to go to school. We let our worry birds go to God, and now he's able to be free, and he's able to, God takes care of the birds of the air. So how much more is he taking care of us? And so it's just that ability to listen and just kind of step into what might be really going on,
I totally resonate with that belly flash thing, man. I'm when I'm taking off an upper shirt, it's like, pro tip, tuck in your shirt.
Yeah.
Tuck in your shirt underneath.
Yeah.
But that is such a good practical illustration of, if you just think about the number of fits, I have one who's more prone to fits than the other. They're both pretty much grown now, but for him, we figured out early on that, he's, that when he got hangry, and when
it's a very real emotion.
It really is a really real emotion. And so when he got hangry, like nothing, like his behavior would just go out of control, and there was no rationale. And so we just started carrying fruit snacks with us or whatever. So, and such a simple solution, but I think about like our parents and the way they were raised, and then the way we were raised. It was stop that right now, like that. And I saw a meme. Yeah. And that's just the way they were raised. And I get it. It's no, I'm not blaming my parents or anything, but I saw a meme the other day that said, "Pass the baton." And it was talking about parenting. It was talking about, our parents have given us the skills that we have. And then as we learn more things, we need to, implement those skills and pass them down to our kids. And then only then do our kids get better. And then the next generation gets better because we're practicing new things that we learn. We don't spend our time, blaming things on past generations. They did what they knew to do. So I just think those tiny tools and skills and reactions that we have to our kids can make such a big difference and really, change generations.
Yeah. Yeah. I agree wholeheartedly. Yep.
So as parents read this story to their kids and interact with their kids, what are some ways that they can help their kids manage worry and anxiety in a biblical way outside of this book? How can they use this book as a tool?
Yeah, great question. And so, one of the Willow's grandma comes alongside her with her worries of, having just moved into a new neighborhood, meeting a new friend. And so she's carrying these worries, and grandma comes and sees the what ifs. She's starting to see it. And so, she starts asking grandma, like, what do you do? Like, how do I let go of my what ifs? How do I let my worry birds go to the sky? And so grandma just says, hey, one of the big things that I deal with is I talk to grandpa. Like, I talk to somebody that loves me and I know loves me about them. And so, it's the beginning of labeling, as we talked about, and then, and I think this is very biblical. I mean, this is Paul in Philippians 4 saying, make your requests known to God. Like, label them, label your anxieties, label your worries, tell God about them. There is a calming effect on the brain. I mean, ultimately he says it's a peace that surpasses all understanding. That is the supernatural part of this. And so I think biblically, hey, we're going to talk to somebody. We're going to talk to someone who loves us, mom and dad, or a guardian or a grandparent. But then we're going to also talk to God about this, and we're going to see what God has to say. And for kids who are too young to maybe label it or put a word to it or talk too much about it, drawing is such a great way to get kids to process what it is that what's going on in their inner world. So draw me a picture about your what if. Like, tell me show me what you're scared of, and it might be a drawing of a house with a big storm coming in or that type of thing. And then, ultimately it gets to a place of Willow's grandma saying, and what would happen if God showed up in the middle of your what if?
Aww.
Like, what would it look like? And so you draw a picture of the what if and the worry, but now draw a picture of what if you show up to that birthday party with Jesus right by your side? And what if you show up to that birthday party and everyone loves you, like, and you make new friends, and there's vanilla cake, and there's like, imagine what it would be like if God were with you in that. And when we do that, what it does is it starts to teach our kids to have the faith to be brave in those situations. Because on the other side of worry is, especially with social situations, Mike, like you were talking about, is the sense of, how can I show up brave? How can I be courageous? And that's what we want to empower our kids to be, is showing up brave and doing new things. Yeah,
absolutely.
Well, Josh, it's been awesome talking with you about this and this topic. I can't help wonder, what you're working on now. Is there anything you're super excited about that you're kind of crafting at this moment that you want us to be aware of?
Oh my goodness, so many things. So, I mean, what do I do with worry? So definitely go get What Do I Do with Worry? That's the big one right now that we're really excited about. And then we have another book releasing early next year. It's a full-on book. It's called Famous at Home, and that's our kind of our coaching principles too. So that was an entire book that Christy and I wrote together. That wasn't just a children's book of 1,000 words or 800 words. That was like a real deal, 55,000 word or whatever.
Wow.
So that's coming out next year. But
and did she write this book while she was pregnant?
So we wrote it while we had the baby. So we wrote it So we'd set some time aside, and I would take some time with the baby. She would take some time with the baby, and back and forth, and we'd have, help. And so it was, that was a good one. That was a good one.
The sound of the typewriter would put the baby asleep.
Yeah. Not this baby. This baby's on the go, man. He's everywhere.
So Famous at Home is coming up, next year?
Yeah, in February. Yeah.
Awesome.
Yeah.
Awesome. Well, we will be on the lookout for that for sure. Tell our listeners where they can find these projects and learn more about you and your work.
Yeah, so you can go to whatdoidowithworry.com, and that's where you can find the What Do I Do with Worry kids book. And then famousathome.com is where you can find our podcast and everything else that we're up to. So
Perfect.
Awesome. Josh, thank you so much for being here today. And listeners, we're always giving away free stuff on our socials. So follow us on Instagram or Facebook at The Bible for Kids, or on our website, thebibleforkids.com. See you next time. And Josh, thank you again so much.
thank
Bye.
you, guys.
Thanks for listening to the Bible for Kids podcast with Amy Parker and Mike Naraki. Be sure to connect with The Bible for Kids on Instagram, Facebook, and at thebibleforkids.com. The Bible for Kids podcast is powered by the Christian Parenting Podcast Network. Find out more at christianparenting.org. Our show is also available on waynation.com.
Christian Parenting.